3. There we go. Okay. There they are. So without any further ado, let's get going. We'll start our opening statement with Don, please.
Good evening. There are a few facts that you should know about me. If elected, I fully intend to serve the 4-year mandate, period. I am totally supportive of the business community in Sydney. Look at my record in office, a vision document which set out a new, improved, and enhanced downtown, a business association which worked with other associations and organizations, a street market which has brought thousands of people into town. I am totally supportive of arts and culture in Sydney. Look at my record in office, Mary Winspear Centre, improve accommodation for the Sydney Museum, the Shaw Ocean Discovery Centre, and a home for the Arts Council. I support families and youth. Look at my record, Shoal Centre, Activity Centre, a movie theatre, support for expanded panorama, skateboard park, to name a few. This evening, I look forward to hearing from you and the other candidates. Thanks very much for coming.
Steve Duck.
Good evening. I'm Steve Duck, and I'm seeking your support to be the next mayor of Sydney. For over 30 years, I've had a successful business in Greater Victoria. I continue to actively volunteer in leadership roles in our community. And for the past 3 years, I've sat in many council meetings learning how our community operates. But this election is not about me. It's about you. It's about you choosing a leader and team to successfully guide Sydney through the next 4 years and beyond, to engage you, to inspire you, to share the passion we have for where we live. I am passionate about Sydney, its future, and what we have and the opportunities. Together, we will preserve what we love and change what we must with community input. On November 15th, vote Duck for mayor. Thank you.
You're tall. Cliff McNeil-Smith, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am asking for your vote to become mayor of Sydney because I care about the next 4 years and beyond for our great community. And because I have excellent experience and I've had success in my local business, in volunteering on community organizations, and in serving 3 years on Sydney Council. I'll work full-time on a range of issues. Stronger fiscal accountability on spending and taxes, attainable housing for seniors, families, and single workers, maintain the ambiance and character of our town with responsible redevelopment, and I'll lead a more open local government and communicate stronger with you on issues like fire hall replacement, parking and traffic. I can and I will bring strong, fresh, new leadership to the next council and our community. Thank you.
Our final mayoral candidate this evening, Steve Price.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Steve Price, and I'm asking for your vote to be the next mayor of Sydney. I've been elected to Sydney Council for the past 6 years, and it's been a privilege to serve you. My wife and I have lived here for 25 years, and we've raised our 3 boys here. I know the citizens of this town. I know what's important to them. I know and work well with town staff, and I understand the inner workings of municipal government. My experience on numerous CRD and council committees, along with being acting mayor, has prepared me well to become the next mayor of our fine town. I am the only candidate for mayor who is currently on council. I will continue to bring balanced, practical judgment to the table while we work closely with both business and our residents. We will be fiscally responsible, and we will keep tax increases as low as possible while maintaining the current level of services and amenities that we all enjoy. This council has set the benchmark for good governance and civil behavior. We are respected throughout the region, and as mayor, I intend to ensure we always maintain that high level of operational excellence. So on November the 15th, please vote for Steve Price for mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we move on to our councillor candidates, starting with Mike Barwick.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Mike Barwick, and I'm running for a seat on our council. Some have said it is time for experienced, wise voices, time for youth. At 48, I'm young enough to devote energy to this position, yet old and wise enough to not rush into rash decisions. I'm a homeowner in Sidney and a taxpayer. I am raising my young family here. Sidney is your town. Sidney's my town. Together, Sidney is our town. Residents and businesses working together for the greater good of Sidney. Put Mike Barwick on council, and I will make that happen. Thank you.
Rosemary Bongers.
Change is coming. Some would like to see Sidney as cosmopolitan. I would like to see Sidney remain seaside quaint. That's why most of us are here. There are proposals for Seaport and downtown that include high-rise buildings that will have significant impacts on a view, access to waterfront, and create wind tunnels and shade. I do believe the only constant is change, but let's keep to the theme when making development decisions. We can't take it back. We need a council who will make decisions in an open and transparent manner, representing the wants and needs of the residents and business owners of this town. As a businesswoman in Sidney, I believe the mayor and council are out of touch with the realities of outside competition in Sidney business. They have little respect for the people footing the bills, we the taxpayers. If elected, I will fight to ensure that any tax increases are no more than the cost of living. A new fire hall and sewage treatment plant is planned. Much more public consultation is needed before any decision can be made. Infrastructure is aging. New infrastructure is required. It's about choices, and there is only so much money.
Aaron Bremner.
Hi, my name's Erin Bremner, and I'm running for Sidney Council. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. My first job was a page at the BC Legislature in Victoria, and in my teens, I was on the Saanich Youth Council. I've been involved with our community since 2006 with my family's menswear business, and with organizations such as the Sidney Business Association, the Sidney Fine Art Show, the Sidney Merchants Co-op, the Advisory Planning Commission, the Sidney BIA, and another one, the Mayor's Task Force. I believe in public process, I believe in working together, I believe in finding solutions and long-term planning. I'm energetic, I'm committed, and I'm action-oriented, and it's time for my generation to get involved. I love our Sidney, and I want to make a difference. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
Good evening. I am Tim Chad, and I'm running hard for re-election to the Council of the Town of Sidney. With my wife Gloria and our sons, we have made our home in Sidney since the summer of '73. We now share the benefits of this community with our youngest son and 2 grandsons. We are committed to our community. I have the experience and dedication needed to receive your vote November 15. I will work with Sidney Business Association and the Chamber to increase feet on the street. Without the feet entering the stores and professional offices, we will continue to lose our special enterprises. To this end, I will be encouraging the council and business to urge property owners to redevelop and renovate their buildings in the town center to create new accommodation for feet on the street. Thank you.
Barbara Fallett.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Fallot. I decided to take an interest in politics and give back to my community by standing for council, thus making use of the knowledge gained from my business background and experience from years attending council and committee meetings. Campaigning has shown me how diverse our community is, yet we are a community. Balancing and maintaining the essence of Sidney is paramount. We need strong leaders with vision. We need housing that is suitable for younger, active people and families. With good planning and design, we will enhance the streetscape, the neighborhood, as well as the town. We must address how our taxes are spent. Operational maintenance costs is often the greater tax strain. Working together, we will maintain the essence of our beautiful seaside town of Sidney. Let us build on that strong foundation and make our Sidney even better. On November 15th, put Fallot on the ballot.
Sheila Fee.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Fay, and I'm running for council in Sidney because I believe in our beautiful community. I have 3 priorities that I'm really passionate about. First, we must improve our business permit application process. The current process of applying for a permit every year is inefficient and expensive. We should change the process that permits are completed only once or once every 10 years. Second, we must focus on prudent fiscal management. This includes achieving 0% tax increase where possible. Also strongly believe that Sidney will become a more livable and economically resilient if we support the development of a range of housing choices which meet all our housing needs, including needs for low and moderate income citizens. Third, we must continue to protect our arts and culture in Sidney by supporting the not-for-profit organizations that contribute so much to our community. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
I'm Melissa Haley. I'm running for re-election in Sidney. I've very much enjoyed the past 3 years here. Sidney is unique in that the council is very issue-oriented. We don't have a lot of the political disruptions. We focus a lot more on what is best for the town, personalities aside. My website's melissahaley.info. I'm always looking for more efficiencies for council. For example, we've got on iPads, which is saving the town from having to photocopy, staple, and extra work. I'm also looking forward to trying to see getting webcams in the council chambers so everyone can be on the same page on what council sees. The trouble with the silent majority is they're silent. It's very hard to be a mind reader on council. So things like sydneysays.ca allows a forum for the community to come together and discuss the issues. It also gives
Thank you. Bob Jones.
Good evening. My name is Bob Jones. Some of you may remember me from my last term on council. I was a councillor for 21 years from 87 to 08 and left then thinking that all was well. I have been a resident of Sidney for 31 years, and I'm a retired police officer with over 30 years service. I'm really concerned about where we've gone. That's why I'm back. I'm worried about where Sidney's going financially. We're buying things perhaps I feel we don't really need and we can't afford. So we need to revisit a lot of things. We need to revisit our official community plan, see where you want us to go, the local area plans, and we need to look at our capital budgets and stuff to see if we can get more value out of them. Finally, I would like to see our tax increases linked to CPI. I think that's a realistic gauge, perhaps more realistic than COLA. And that is about all I have to say. I think I'm under the numbers here.
Are you going to let me say your name?
Go ahead.
He was quizzing
Go
me
ahead.
earlier. Okay, Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mervyn Lougher-Goodey, and I've been a Sydney residential taxpayer for 23 years, and I'm running for re-election. Why should you vote for me? I bring years of community and leadership experience to the council chambers. I believe in a balanced approach, looking at both sides of the problem and making decisions accordingly. I have the time and energy to be effective, so I believe I remain qualified to be one of your councillors. I support reasonable municipal rates to keep our lovely town safe, sustainable, and healthy. I consider myself a full-time councillor and have attended to all my committee work. I remain open-minded, decisive, and will always strive to use common sense. I ask for your support on November the 15th. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
My name is Cam McLennan. I'm 33 years old. I have a lovely wife and 3 young boys. I have grown up in Sydney in the North Saanich area with a short stint in Lake Cowichan. What I realized is Sydney is home. The big problem, I can't afford to buy a house here. I have seen many, many young people move away to other communities to find a better place to start their families, cheaper. Affordable housing is one of the main issues that Sydney is dealing with. And with all the rest of them, I want to work to fix some of these issues. I'm excited to be on council and help with that. Mayor and council need to be fiscally responsible when making decisions for the future. We need to inform the residents and whenever we can seek their input. So I would like to work with you to help make the city a better place. Thanks.
I'd now like to introduce Vivian Plint, who will be speaking on behalf of her husband, Colin, and she will have an extended time period, not just 1 minute to speak. I think she has 3, is that correct? Because she won't be making a closing statement or answering any questions.
Thank you. My usual audience is a group of 4- and 5-year-olds who hang on my every word with joyful abandon, and Colin has assured me that tonight will be no different. Good evening, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for supporting tonight's all candidates meeting. My apologies that my flying schedule at Air Canada had already been finalized for November when notice of tonight's events were received. On the positive side, council's schedule is made up a year in advance, and I found that during my 6 previous years serving on council that I was able to fulfill the role of councillor with the same enthusiasm and dedication that I put towards my captain's position at Air Canada. As a resident of Sydney for the past 30 years, I understand the culture and diversity of our town. Being able to visit so many other towns and cities as a pilot affords me the opportunity to see what works and what doesn't in these communities, and I can bring these observations forward for discussion. My wife Vivian and I raised our 2 children in Sydney, and this has given me insight into the importance of the resources and variety of community activities that make families proud to call Sydney home. Town staff's dedication to our many parks, the Panorama Recreation Centre expansion, and School District 63's rejuvenation of our neighbouring schools have all made a large impact on our young families. The business sector in Sydney is very valuable to the sustainability of our town and must be on council's radar at all times. We must remember that our downtown serves as the economic centre of the peninsula. Town staff have been proactive in developing additional parking and the infrastructure to accommodate the future needs of our downtown core. We now need to work with business to fulfill their future needs while keeping our town's charm. The many residents who choose to retire in Sydney do so because of what Sydney offers, including abundant sidewalks and street lighting. The retirement centres that have been developed, especially the Shoals Centre, show that our retirees have a very strong economic impact and are an integral part of the business and family sectors of our community. Once again, town and staff have identified and implemented ideas and suggestions that continue to make Sydney a community worth retiring to. The Town Council, elected by you, the residents of Sydney, and made up of mayor and 6 councillors, are a team. Its members cannot work unilaterally. Each member must keep an open mind, listen, and then work cooperatively and collaboratively within the team. My previous 6 years as councillor demonstrated very clearly to me that this is how an effective council works to achieve results, and I remain fully committed to this model of effective local government. The process to select a group of individuals who will work together to represent and support you is critical to Sydney's growth and vitality, and I know that you do not take this responsibility lightly. I thank each of you for your time, the families, business owners, and retirees, all of you who have such a high stake in our community's future. Best regards to all the candidates. Please encourage your friends and loved ones to vote on November 15th. Sincerely, Colin Plint, candidate for Sydney Town Council.
Thank you, Vivian. That must be intimidating, I'm sure. Okay, our final candidate is Peter Wainwright.
Hi, I'm Peter Wainwright. I'm 58, environmental consultant, semi-retired. Lived in Sydney for 30 years, and for 15 years I served on Sydney Council from '93 to 2008. I decided to run again because Sydney is facing some challenges, and I think I can make a difference. My platform is in this brochure, and there's also some information about my performance on the previous terms on council. Sydney is a great place, but we need proactive leadership over the next 4 years. I believe I can be a valuable addition to that team. Please help me make a difference. On November 15th, vote Wainwright for councillor. Thanks.
Okay, now that we've completed the introductions, we're going to move on to the questions. So as we move along in each question, we're going to start, for instance, with Dawn, then Steve, then Cliff, then Steve. And then for the next question, we'll start with Steve Duck, and we'll rotate around, ending with Dawn. Does that make sense? And we'll do the same for the councillor candidates. So the first question, and these, as of right now, are all for all candidates, so we'll just go down the line. You'll have 1 minute to answer, again, with the same rules. The bell at 30 seconds, the red card, and me screaming in the microphone when you are finished at a minute. So the first question is, what can you propose to ensure that there is a diversified age range residing in Sydney, affordable housing, and more vibrant downtown after 6 p.m.? Starting with Don Amos.
More bookstores. No, I would like to say that housing is an issue and has been an issue in Sydney for quite some time. And I think that we have to take a whole new look at West Sydney in the Gallaran area. That area is suitable, I think, for some redevelopment, but we'd have to ask the people in the area if that's what they want to do, because I can see it dovetailing very well with our West Sydney community, our manufacturing, and our industrial. It's the best kept secret in Sydney. 40% of the manufacturing and industrial plants and operations in our region are here in Sydney, along with our high tech. So we do need more housing and incentives to get developers to be able to construct smaller units, but suitable for families. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Duck.
It's a difficult question because it's not simply affordable housing. It's also about what's here for families to come to Sydney. As mentioned in the question, we need to offer amenities that encourage families to stay here after school and after work, which means we need to partner with our businesses in town to extend hours to at least 7 o'clock in the evening so that families and children have opportunities after school and after work. We need more activities for children and teens, a youth center of some sort that encourages them to stay in town. Geographically, we have borders that limit our housing abilities. We need to share opportunities with our partners in North Saanich to establish other opportunities for housing that can be affordable. such as at Sandown or other locations that offer lands we can build on. And lastly, we need to work with our business improvement area to enhance and develop our opportunities on town. Thank you.
Just an announcement. From here on out, we're going to ask candidates to sit at the table and use the microphones that are kind of in front of them that can be passed down just to save a little bit of time.
Thank you. Today we have 1,000 fewer children in our schools on the Peninsula than we did 10 years ago. Rising property values have led to families leaving, and the population of Sidney has actually decreased over the last 5 years of the census. Employers, large and small, in the downtown and west side are challenged to find employees, particularly those that can live locally. We need to work harder at the municipal level, the CRD Housing Trust level, provincially and federally, to explore options and incentives and achieve balance in our community for seniors, families, and single workers who desire attainable housing. I will lead to make this a high priority for our council, and we need to work with the Business Improvement Area Association and the Chamber to ensure increased vitality, particularly later in the day and into the evenings. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Well, in order to bring vibrancy to the street, we need more people, and we need younger families to move in. In order to do that, what we need to do is we need to increase the density in the core area, for, just as an example, so that there's smaller, more affordable units that young families could afford. And without the people in the streets, then of course then the shops won't be viable. So by just following our award-winning zoning document, which we've just recently won the best in British Columbia for, and also by climbing out of this recession. As everybody knows in this room, we haven't really had a lot of new construction in the last 6 years, and right now we've got projects lined up out the door, and there'll be a whole bunch for everybody to look at the first committee of the whole meeting. So, we've turned the tide on the recession, and the building is starting to come back, and with that brings the people, and with the people will bring the vibrancy, and it will stimulate the business. So it's a pretty simple equation, and this council has been working hard on it for the last 6 years. Thank you.
Mike Barwick.
Unfortunately, Sidney has a finite area, which does make it a challenge to find affordable housing. So how do we define affordable housing? Does it mean renting? Does it mean owning? A lot of other municipalities have encouraged developers to build rental units, which has kept people within their core, especially around the Tillicum area, for example, in Saanich, and help revitalize that mall. We need to have and utilize the space that we have to the best of our ability, work with the CRD, co-op housing, another possibility. Price ranges are high in Sidney, so we need to do what we can to get people to stay here.
Rosemary Bongers.
There are actually a lot of questions in that one little request for answers. There are no easy answers to that. We're 500 people less in this town, an economic state that if you're not growing, you're shutting down. We need to encourage people into this town, and we need to only stay with taxes that are at a level of affordability. We are in a recession. We need to encourage young people to stay. We need stores and shops to stay open. I am a businesswoman. It is very difficult to get young people to work here. Travel costs. It needs a lot more thought. And hopefully with a great council, we can really put together something great.
Erin Bremner.
Thank you. I agree with Rosemary. There's lots of issues within this one question. but I believe with some long-term planning, it would be a natural progression. We build the amenities that attract the young families and new workers, then we build and fill the housing, and then the shops will have a reason to be open late. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
You heard in my introduction of my mantra, feet on the street. Until we get the property owners in the downtown of Sidney to renovate and reconstruct and provide rental for young families, we won't have the feet on the street, and we'll continue to lose our, what I call our unique enterprises. So you'll hear a lot from me about feet on the street. Thank you.
Barbara Follett.
Thank you. I believe that the problem needs to be dealt with in the design and what is being built. If we build for families, then families will come here. If they come here and stay here, then the vibrancy on the street will automatically happen. Businesses used to go and start up someplace, and then people moved to that area. That's changed. Now business looks to see where the people is, where the talent is, where the young educated workers are. We need to stop that bleed. Thank you.
Sheila Fee.
Thank you. One of the things that we do need here, and I'm passionate about it, is attainable housing and workforce housing, which actually means that we need to have smaller lot properties. It's just an absolute must. We also must have infilling downtown. One of the things that we need to be very careful about is the amount of taxes that are on these buildings or in these homes that are in Sidney. You know, it becomes very cost prohibitive when the children are buying a $500,000 house and they have to put aside just as much for taxes every month as they're paying on their mortgages. Childcare is another issue that we need to look at and maybe open that up in Sidney. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
We are the third oldest in BC per capita, and I guess this is a byproduct of our success. We've been such an attractive community to move to that the house prices are around $500,000. Council has looked at things like secondary suites in a way that so the young family owners can buy the house and use the rent to subsidize their mortgage. We can't control prices directly, but we can control form and function of housing and adapt it to what the younger people need.
Bob Jones.
Thank you. Is this okay? That's better. Is a community that is vibrant, is it actually defined by what time the stores close? I don't think so. You can have a vibrant community and you don't have to have stores open until late in the evening. You can have what we have now. I think we have a fairly vibrant business community that is functioning well and serves the residents, the current residents, given the demographic, quite well. As far as housing goes, I'm on council. I've been on council long enough to know you can't make promises. There's attainable, there's affordable, you try. The feds and the BC government aren't parting with any money right now. We've got to be realistic. We have to look at it from the perspective that we might not be able to do anything. Go to nonprofits and other things like that. But I think we have a vibrant community. We need to go to the public with our OCP, see what they want to do, and see if it's realistic to try to meet any kind of goals as stated. Thanks.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. When you talked about vibrancy downtown, it reminded me of when I was a young man in Victoria. I hate to say it, in the late 50s, early 60s. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, they rolled up their sidewalks at 7 p.m. That's where we are now. But look how vibrant Victoria is, because they've got a lot of building. There are a lot of folks living downtown. There's a lot of action. We're doing a lot of things in Sidney. Bowerbank is bringing in families. The old intermediate school site, there's just starting into construction there, preparing the sites. Small individual houses, that's what the young people like. They don't like condos or row housing. Those are being built. Homeowners are now able to do more with their properties, to get mortgage helpers, so apartments are going in on the basements. And I support the North Saanich owners adjacent to Sidney developing their property with single-family housing. They're all filled up. Young people are there. And this is good for us, good for utilities, good for the bus transportation, good for our local schools, population, and commerce. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
Well, I am living this right now. So, you know, one of the big things that, you know, we need is this family type housing. Condos don't work for someone with 3 children. We're just not going to pack them in there. So the larger type housing with, you know, with a suite, a helper, those are nice things. Maybe some sort of tax incentives, you know, for the young families. And, you know, encouraging the builders, maybe having some sort of incentives for them to build rental facilities for our people, the youth. So I also encourage, as Mervyn said, you know, our neighbors, they are starting to look at densifying some properties that surround the Sydney areas. And yes, that won't help the tax base on our side of things, but the people will be in Sydney. So, thank you.
Peter Wainwright.
Okay. At the heart of the problem for this affordable housing is that land in Sydney is really expensive and everything's already developed. That means if you want to build something new, you've got to rip something down, and that makes it expensive. What tends to be happening is that our older family housing, it gets to a certain point and then it's very expensive to renovate. A developer will come along and buy it. It's better for the owner. And the developer usually does something that's small lot, small unit. So it's going exactly away from family oriented. What we need to do is stop that bleeding. We have to find ways of making it possible for somebody to renovate one of these older units and keep it as a family unit. The secondary suites help. There's lots of grants for making it energy efficient, things like that. We could give tax incentives, but key to the problem is we've got to stop losing the family-oriented stuff we've got.
Thank you. The next question is for mayoral candidates only, so we will start with Steve Duck. Are you in favor or against the overpass proposed for Beacon Avenue and Highway 17? And if in favor, how will it be financed?
I'm not in favor of this proposal. And the reason is that we can't afford it. We need to be fiscally responsible. The proposal costs $3.4 million in today's dollars. If we look at that and see what happens when it's built, it's going to be far more than that. Right now, we have much more serious problems in Sydney that we need to be fiscally responsible for. Yes, we want to be safe and ensure a crossing that is appropriate for our children and people that live in West Sydney. Let's make sure that we look at what those options are. Maybe it's slowing down the traffic on the Pat Bay Highway. But we need to be fiscally responsible and looking at where that is going to be and how we spend those dollars. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Thank you. There are currently 2 pedestrian overpasses north and south of Beacon Avenue and the highway. These were built some years ago after unfortunate deaths from persons crossing the open highway. Beacon Avenue and the highway is a controlled intersection, and crossing guards are there for school children that still cross. I believe the need for a 3rd pedestrian overpass is not necessary. There has been no engagement with the community on the project to date. The current project cost of $3.4 million, even if some monies are from the province, seems way out of line with the questionable need. I'm hearing this daily when knocking on your doors. I will lead to have council and staff revisit the project. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Yeah, the pedestrian overpass is wholly funded by the province and federal funding, so there are no local tax dollars associated with it. We're currently in negotiations with the province right now to increase their level of funding. And when we hear back from them, and when that happens, then it can be built at no cost to the residents of Sydney to not only improve safety on the highway for people crossing back and forth and the workers and the residents of West Sidney. It'll also act as 2 number 70 express bus stops on either side, and it will also tie all the bike trails together as well. So it'll be like an economic generator. So I'm in favor of anything that makes our residents safer, and this is, like I mentioned, this is a provincially and federally funded project at no cost to us. So I believe it's worthwhile to do if the funding is there from the province. If not, then it won't get built for a while. Thank you.
Don Amos.
Thank you. Well, we can't look at our problems in isolation. That is only one part of the puzzle up at that highway. You shouldn't be even considering putting something in like that until you say, where is a potential overpass going to go one day? Is there going to be a gateway project? How is that going to impact on everything? So you don't even know if it's going to go in the right location. And I agree that at the present time, there's just as much traffic flowing at that intersection from the pedestrians and cyclists going north and south as there is east and west. So I think we have to look at the whole situation for the whole intersection before we make a decision such as this. Remember, there's only one taxpayer. Doesn't matter if it's federal or provincial money. It's still our money.
Thank you. The next question is for all candidates. And we'll start with Cliff McNeil-Smith. Would those candidates who do not reside in the town of Sidney please identify themselves and explain why they wish to sit on council and make decisions for those of us who do live here?
I am a resident, I'm a homeowner, I'm a commercial homeowner and a business operator. Thank you.
Steve Price.
I'm a 25-year resident. I raised my family here. I've had a small business here for the last 25 years. I don't think I qualify for that question, so thanks.
Mike Barwick.
Same as the other two so far. I'm a homeowner, taxpayer, and right now raising a young family with my wife, happily here in Sidney.
Rosemary Bongers.
I did live in Sidney. I lived in Sidney for 5 years. I live 3 minutes outside of the Sidney border. This allowed me to buy 2 commercial properties within Sidney. I own a business in Sidney, which I purchased. My life is Sidney. That is why I'm here. I know so much about this town because most of my clients live in Sidney. I hear directly from them about the complications, the concerns of this town. I live in Sidney, but I sleep somewhere else.
Erin Bremner.
Hi there. My family owns 2 businesses on Beacon Avenue, 2 tax-paying businesses on Beacon Avenue. My daughter attends full-time daycare in Sidney, and I've volunteered on 8 different committees since 2006 in Sidney. I honestly wish the question was, what do the candidates offer? What have we done for the community so far, and what can we offer moving forward? Sitting on those 8 committees, I know I've been an action-oriented person and made a difference in our community, and I look forward to doing that again. We live in Saanich. My partner works right downtown Victoria, so we split the difference. We've lived in Sidney in the past, and we'll very likely live in Sidney again. Thank you very much.
Tim Chad.
As in my introduction, I've been here since '73. I'm still in the same house, still with the same lovely wife.
Barbara Follett.
I've been a Sidney resident for 27 years, and I've had a business in Sidney for 22 years. I'm committed to Sidney.
Sheila Fay.
I have lived on the Peninsula for 37 years. I have moved into Sydney 2 years ago. I am now pleasantly living in Sydney. It's a wonderful place to live for the last 2 years. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
I don't think it really matters where I sleep. I spend all my waking hours in Sydney. 2 businesses I'm connected to. I've taken numerous residents out paddling, kayaking, watching seals. I've probably phoned up most of you to remind you to get your taxes in, to be done by Beacon Tax Services. I'm sleeping, I can't interact with you. When I'm awake, I interact with you. I hear your concerns. I can be part of the town. Thank you.
Bob Jones.
I have lived in the same house in Sydney for 31 years.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
My wife and I have paid Sydney municipal taxes for 23 years. We have lived and volunteered in Sydney for 16 years. We do our shopping in Sydney. If re-elected, I would continue to be a full-time councillor for Sydney, which includes weekends, evenings, and stat holidays. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
I currently reside in North Saanich, and that is because when we returned to the area, we could not afford a home in Sydney to buy. The other thing is we couldn't find a suitable suite or house to rent for our 3 children. So we happened to find a place in North Saanich. We are moving to Sydney. I do a lot here. I am a member of the Torquemasters Car Club, and we spend countless hours to put the car show on that raises money for Sydney charities. And last year, or this last summer, I also helped out with the Sydney Fire Department 100-year anniversary. So Sydney is where it's at. Sydney is my home, and I do everything in Sydney. Shopping, my wife works in Sydney. We're in Sydney all the time. So I live about 2 minutes and 30 seconds away from Sydney, and we will be here soon. Thank you.
Peter Wainwright.
I own a home and live in the Green Glade area of Sydney.
Don Amos.
I moved here with my family over 30 years ago to see if we liked it. I guess we like it.
Steve Duck.
I'm a Sydney resident and business operator, and I'm passionate about our community and its future. When you're looking at your councillors that don't live in Sydney, I think it's important to regard them as to what do they contribute to our town and it's in the region we live in. It's not necessarily where they sleep, but what are they doing for Sydney. Thank you.
Okay, next question. I got lost for a second there. Okay, Steve Price. This question is for everyone. Who of the candidates supports the Gateway to Sydney project with more retail space?
Well, actually, the Airport Authority has some development lands. They've gone to a public open house. They've received mixed feedback. So at this point in time, no one has any idea what's going to go in over there. So it could be commercial offices, it could be a hotel, it could be a gas station, it could be anything. And right now the land is zoned as residential. So until there's something that's agreeable to the people of the town of Sydney, that's the way the zoning is going to stay. So thank you.
Growing up in Langford, I remember the death knell being sounded when Costco was coming. And the other stores followed, and the families and populations all followed. And Langford's amenities are second to none. And the developers have paid for all of them. All the sports fields, all the training fields that world-class athletes use, all built on the developer's dime. Like Steve said, nothing's in stone. It could turn into housing. So as far as that project goes, I can't speak to it, but I can speak to the opportunities that arise from development. Thank you.
Rosemary Bongers.
I agree with the Gateway project. I think it will bring more people into this town. I think it will allow for a lot more tax dollars. I believe that the developer will help to make our infrastructure stronger. There's nothing wrong with competition. It won't kill Sidney, it will improve it.
Erin Bremner.
I'm in favor of the Gateway development on the Airport Authority property, as long as the offerings are complementary to what we have in Sidney already, rather than contradictory. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
I think the Gateway project or the Victoria Airport Authority property offers an opportunity for them to make a proposal to you. That will be your decision.
Barbara Follett.
I believe the Gateway project as it was is not happening at this time, and until they bring forth another proposal, then we can judge it at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. As it's already been mentioned, the Gateway project is basically dead at this point. The Airport Authority will come back, and it will be something that we want. And the Airport Authority has always been very good at coming to the municipalities and asking them what they could take, what they would like to see happening, and then they will make up their mind from there. So at this point, there's really nothing one can say about what is going to really happen at the Gateway. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
I think it's a good example of the people who show up and raise their voices, how powerful they are, how they can be heard in projects. So remember that when you're talking to your councillors or anyone else, that your voice does make a difference.
Bob Jones.
Well, we have Sandown, we have the Jeskin Center, and we have Greatway. I would suggest that there's a whole lot more retail there than we're ever going to bear. I think, and I will harken back to everything I've said earlier, we need to go to the OCP, the local area plans, see whether this is viable or not. I don't think so. Not at this time. But I think you've got to go. Our OCP is 7 years old. It should have been reviewed some time ago, and I guess there's circumstance, you know, there's a reason why it wasn't. We need to go there, we need to see what you want, and I don't think that will fly at this time.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. The Victoria Airport Authority has been an excellent neighborhood to Sidney and North Saanich. They are looking at developing that land. The only input I've had personally as a councillor sitting with the Chamber Board of Directors is to try to get an information center put in there. As you know, we had the information center on the highway, and there may be an opportunity to do that. But it really depends upon the developer that the Airport Authority picks, and that's about the most positive thing I can say. I don't think they're going to put in retail. I sense that it'll be more services, medical offices, and I think that's the sort of idea, but I hate to say anything on behalf of the Victoria Airport Authority, but I think that's sort of the general gist that we may see from them in the springtime. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
I do support the Gateway project, provided that they put in the plan something to do with the traffic. Talking with people on the west side and living it myself, that traffic over there is horrible. And if we add more shops and stuff on that corner, we're going to be in trouble with the traffic. So as long as the plan provides for a strategic plan for the traffic, I would support it.
Peter Wainwright.
I can't see how I could be in favor of something until I see some real plans. The site is obviously underutilized, but you know, as Cam said, there is quite a bit of potential for impact on traffic. I live over there too. So I think we need to see some plans of what they're proposing, and then we can decide.
Don Amos.
Well, we don't have a proposal to consider, but we need to ask the community what they wish in that area. So then we can give some guidance to the Airport Authority or others as to what we want. We can't live in isolation, And also, we can't look at this gateway in isolation. You've got to look at that whole area for the traffic flow and the overpass and the whole ball of wax. And what do we want long term? Beacon Avenue in West Sydney. Do we want an extension of retail? Do we want it to be continued housing? That is one question that has to be answered before you look at Gateway to decide what you want there. Thank you.
Steve Duck.
So let's take a look at what we have here, because I think as Mr. Amos said, we have to look at the entire picture. And this area is currently zoned residential. Well, I think all of us know that nobody's going to live at the end of the runway at the airport. And it's important to keep that perspective in mind, that we do need to change the zoning of this area. And the airport has done a fine job in engaging the community. And that's the important part, as we continue to engage the community, especially those residents in West Sydney, because they're the ones that have to try and travel through that area. And when we change the traffic patterns, there's going to be some significant challenges for that. The other part is to make sure that we are complementary to our downtown businesses and we don't compete with them, and ensure that they are vibrant, successful businesses. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
As been stated, the Gateway project is in very preliminary planning stages. And there is a bigger picture, and we need to look at the Airport Authority is a fine corporate citizen, and they have held open houses, and the feedback has been strong. And the priority that's come back is that let's look at the transportation needs at the Pat Bay Highway intersection and Sterling Avenue. And when it comes to looking at development, there will have to be proposals. Any business going there will have to be complementary to Sydney. Retail and service is unlikely to be complementary in that location, but there are many other possible uses. Thank you.
The next question is for mayoral candidates, so we're going to start again with you, Don. Right? Yeah. Okay. Tax increases outpace StatsCan cost of living. What would you do to regain fiscal control?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get our own house in order at Town Hall. You can't go out and do other things until you get that done. And then we can look at our multiples between residential and our commercial, and what is the difference between the two. Is it too wide a spread? Is it too cumbersome on the business? We need to look at that in detail. We always make sure that within the region that we are in a good place on our taxes, that we're not at the top, we're not at the lowest. And you know, recently it was just announced that for Canada or the BC, Sydney had the lowest tax increase in 10 years from 20 to 2010. I was mayor 8 of those 10 years when the per capita growth was only 18.
Thank you. Steve Duck.
So first, we need to take stock. We need to do a rigorous review of what we're doing in Town Hall. We're public servants. We need to make sure that we are serving our residents appropriately. So we need to take a look at the services we're providing. What are those basic services and what do they cost? We need to take a look at our salaries and make sure that we're not overpaying people. Make sure that we're getting full value for our money we pay them. And lastly, we need to look at our contracted services and make sure that we're getting good return on those. Those things, in addition to making sure that our residents are served in all areas. In my door-to-door canvass, I've found that many residents in West Sydney, North Sydney, are not getting the services they pay for. And we need to take stock of that and make sure that we are serving all residents. And lastly, that we look at zero tax increases, either at inflation or with the growth of the population, no more. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Taxes for Sydney residents and businesses have risen faster than inflation on average for at least the last 13 years. Residents and businesses paid just over $350,000 in higher taxes in 2013, at just under a 3% increase. The surplus from the town operations in 2013 was over $850,000, Did we need a tax increase? Wages, salaries, and benefits for the town staff have risen 58% over the last 8 years. It's not how our increase compares to the increases in other municipalities. I will bring a strong business approach to setting budgets and controlling spending to bring tax increases as close to zero as possible. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Regarding current taxes, the highest tax increases this town has seen occurred back in 2001 and 2005 when there were 10% and 6% increases. And as far as the staff wages, how they slowly crept out of control, in 2007 under the previous administration, in one shot, the director's salaries were raised from $88,000 to $110,000 a year. So to counter that, what this council has done is we've put a 2-year freeze on exempt staff wages to try to undo some of the damage that was done before us. So it's part of the problem has been trying to catch up with what has happened in the past. And currently, our tax rates are either stayed the same or they've decreased over the last 6 years. So this council has set an example, but you know it is hard to undo some of the past damage that was done. So thank you.
The next question is for all candidates, so we will start with Mike Barwick. Will you support the continued participation of Sidney in the CRD Arts Funding and work together with Central Saanich and North Saanich councils to get peninsula-wide participation?
Well, to be honest with you, arts is not my forte. It's sort of, I'm a blue-collar municipal, used to be municipal worker, but any cooperation with any other government is good. Not towing the line to amalgamation either way by any means, but I would support it if it made fiscal sense.
Rosemary Bongers.
I support anything to do with the arts, education. I'm not sure I support the CRD.
Erin Bremner.
I think the arts add to our vibrancy and culture of our community. So I think it's an important aspect of what we offer. And working with our neighboring municipalities is really important. As a new councillor, I'm not sure what our contributions have been in the past, but working with the art show, I know that brings lots of people to town and is an economic generator. So I'd like to look further at this issue. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
The arts and culture in our town and on the peninsula have been probably some of the best participant arts that we've got. Take a look around you. We have the theater, we have this, we have all the rooms. We had the Aboriginal arts came back for the second year, bigger and better. We have the Arts Council has a building down on the waterfront. That was provided, the building was provided by the town. So there are lots of arts going on, lots of culture, and we've got it here. I think we need to look at what we've been able to accomplish if going with the CRD.
Barbara Follett.
I think supporting the arts and culture and community is an extremely important thing for everyone to do. There's so much that our town alone can do, but we need to branch out and take part of what the larger community, which is in the CRD. I am in support of, or I'm in favor of supporting the arts and cultural communities.
Sheila Fay.
Thank you. The arts and culture in this community are extremely important. For an instance, this particular hall itself, Mary Winspear, I was on the board when we got started, when we went out and fundraised to build this building. This particular place brings in $6 to $8 million a year into our community. We have to support places like this. I'd like to see the Peninsula look after the arts and culture in all 3 municipalities. I'm not really excited about the CRD aspect of it, but I certainly support the arts and culture. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
Sydney is the arts and culture capital of the Peninsula. Particularly with the CRD fund, we tend to get more money out of it than we put in. And this is not counting the economic drivers that spin off from it. How many people stay in hotels when they come to concerts? How many people eat on the street at our wonderful restaurants we have while they're attending an art show here? How many people come to Sydney just to do the sculpture walk? It is an economic driver as well as a beautification.
Bob Jones.
I feel the town should support arts and culture to the extent we can afford to. We do a lot outside of the framework of the CRD. I'm not a great fan of the CRD. However, we should, if we can afford to support CRD Arts and Culture's initiatives, so be it. Right at the moment, I'm not sure that's the case. So we should look at things with our partner municipalities and determine what our share should be, if anything.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you, Louise. It's very tough when you're starting to be at the end of the bus here because everybody said all the good things about arts. But however, they've missed one. And during a council meeting, we debated whether we should provide some money to the Film Commission, which operates out of Victoria. So we gave them a small amount of money. And because we did that, there was a tick on their list for Sidney. And I believe that's why we got Grace Point filmed here. Now, talking to some of the people involved in finding locations, they wished they had met us before because they'd have come here all the time instead of Oak Bay. So there we go, folks. We're on the map for a small amount of money that went to the Film Commission. Thank you.
I live in Oak Bay. Come on. Just kidding. Okay. Next we have Cam McLennan.
Yeah, I'm a strong supporter of the arts and culture. I mean, that is sewn into the fabric of Sydney. So, you know, as for how much to give, that is something that, you know, a new council will have to look at. But I'm definitely in favor of supporting that. Thank you.
Peter Wainwright.
Okay. I confess I'm more in favor of supporting arts on the peninsula and particularly the Mary Winspear than giving money to the CRD. I'm open-minded. If they're actually giving us more benefit than we're paying, I'd certainly consider it, but I confess I'm skeptical.
Don Amos.
Well, we've always supported the arts on the peninsula. The Peninsula Arts Council gets a grant from the town every year. We gave them a home at Talista Park. We have the Mary Winspear Center, which is great for the annual art show and other events. We have Star Cinema. We have the Shaw Ocean Discovery Center. We have the Historical Museum. On the CRD issue, I guess it depends on the costs. How much is it costing us, and do we get some benefit from it? And I think we have to continually examine that before we make a decision.
Steve Duck.
Arts and culture are one of our assets to our community. We need to develop this. It is an economic driver for our community. The Mary Winspear is one of those gems that we have in our community. As president of the Mary Winspear Foundation, we have and are continuing to develop a wonderful location here that you are sitting in tonight. With respect to the CRD, we have done a good job of shared services through them. If we could ask the CRD to give us the same amount of loans or grants that our recreation systems get, for example, Panorama, we would not have to worry about this capital asset and the survivability of it. It's important that we receive an equal amount as to what we see going to recreation. Cultural excellence is one of our gems. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Arts and culture are part of the fabric of our community. I was on council when from 2009 to 2011, when we unanimously supported joining the CRD Arts Council in the fund. And the reports back each year have been very positive in terms of the multiplier benefits to not only the Mary Winspear Centre, but other cultural assets in our community. And I just want to thank Marilyn Lovelace, who has been a champion for arts and helped spur council on to make that initiative. Thank you, Marilyn, for your encouragement, and I continue to support the arts.
Steve Price.
Well, as a councillor for the last 6 years and as your future mayor, I would strongly support the CRD Arts Levy. It's been a huge success for us. The multiplier as far as being an economic generator has just been wonderful as far as stimulating business, and it will remain on my radar as one of our priorities because it does benefit the town, so in a multitude of ways. And I want to thank Marilyn as well for her hard work. So thank you, Marilyn.
The next question will begin with Rosemary Bongers. To all candidates, a simple yes or no answer is all that is required. Do you support one way or a two-way to Beacon Avenue? That doesn't make sense. Never mind. Can you just, yeah, you can answer the question. Do you support it or do you not?
It's not a simple yes or no answer. If we have one way, then we should have Bevan as going one way the opposite direction, so we keep the people in the town in a loop so they aren't spit out at the end with no place to go. Honestly, it happened to me.
Erin Bremner.
I think there's more than just two options than one way or two ways. I don't think we should revert back to the past just for the sake of reverting back to the past. I think we need to look at our needs for the future. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
One way, yes.
Barbara Follett.
One way and tidy up the support streets, Bevan Avenue and James White. Make it unified, four-way stop or two-way stop, but tidy it up.
Sheila Fay.
I'm with Barbara on that one. It just drives me nuts. But, you know, I've lived here with both one way and I've lived here two ways, and either one works. Whatever the community wants is really what we would end up having to do.
Melissa Haley.
Over 80% of you guys said you want to keep it as is, and to me that's overwhelming majority, so keep it as is.
Bob Jones.
I believe we should keep it as is. However, I have coffee on that street every morning, and really it's two-way now every half an hour or so. You know, you just sit there long enough and somebody goes by the wrong way. But hey, I think in terms, and I hearken back all the time to this OCP review and area plans. If we need to revisit it, we can, but my short answer is no. Let's just leave it the way it is. It has entertainment value.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
As carrying a lot of battle scars, supporting the one-way solution, obviously I'm a one-way guy here. It sounds terrible, but that's the way I am. When the consultant actually briefed us, and he had the options there, one of the options he did not have there was, I don't want to use the word no way, but during the summer there's been a lot of talk from residents that they'd like to actually close that street. It's closed for the market. And it might be worthwhile having a trial for the July-August timeframe to see how that goes. But I'm certainly for the remaining the one way. For all sorts of good, solid reasons: cost, traffic safety. Talk to the RCMP. They don't want any more traffic accidents. So that's I'm a one-way guy. Sorry, folks. That's the way it is. I'm great.
Cam McLennan.
Yeah, keep it one way. Thank you.
Peter Wainwright.
I don't support a change. There are a lot of things we could be spending money on other than that.
Don Amos.
Well, I was mayor when we put it in, and I had to wear a hard hat for protection for the first 6 months. Didn't dare leave the office because sometimes people don't like change. But one-way, yes, it's working, it's safer, and it's enjoyable for everyone.
Steve Duck.
So is the question one-way versus two-way? Why ask me? We've got 5% of the population right here. What do you think? Everybody in favor of two-way, put your hands up. Everybody in favor of one-way, put your hands up. Question answered. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
How can 3 blocks of Beacon Avenue Road generate such consternation in our community? For nearly 3 years, a group has been advocating for changing the one-way stretch to two-way. I am not in favor of making that change at present. I believe the current mayor and council could have and should have done a much better job communicating with the advocates, the business community, and the residents. There are other traffic congestion and parking concerns that need to be considered together. We need to keep our town pedestrian friendly and safe. I will lead the next council to work on all traffic and parking issues and communicate more effectively with the community. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Council just recently extensively polled our population, and I believe it was close to 90% of you said leave it as one way, and that's the way it will remain under my administration. Thank you.
Mike Barwick.
I saw the polling numbers. Obviously, the hands show. We're here to listen to you. One way.
Rosemary Bongers.
I started this.
Oh, sorry, never mind. Never mind. That was a test. It was a test. You passed. It's nice to see some laughs in here, though. This is good. It's a very nice change from most candidate debates. Okay. Starting with Aaron. How many candidates know where Northwest Sidney is? We need sidewalks and other infrastructure over there, but get neglected every year, even though a large tax base is over there in the industrial park and residences. Please comment.
Gee, there's a lot to say about that. I recently spoke to a business owner over there about her increases, and she just felt that she wasn't getting the value for her taxes. I do feel that that side of the highway is neglected, and we do see a huge tax base from the industrial side, and we can't forget about the residents over there. So I guess I need to go knock on some doors and find out what's important to the folks that live over on West Sidney and make sure I understand their concerns. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
We've heard from the folks in West Sidney, and yes, they need to have the streets, curbs and gutters and sidewalks. And there's a lot of areas within Sidney that don't have any sidewalks. And we should be looking at least giving one side of those places a sidewalk.
Barbara Follett.
We promote ourselves as a pedestrian-friendly town, so sidewalks are of utmost importance. And I agree with Tim, at least one side of the street must start having sidewalks. Thank you.
Sheila Fay.
When I was sitting on the Community Development Committee, we did a survey over in West Sidney and went to the businesses in particular and asked them what they wanted. And most of it was the roads and the access and egress to their place of businesses. And also the people that live over there do feel like they are neglected. The one thing that they didn't want that I wanted was a public washroom, and they all felt that they were well served over there, so I don't understand them at all. But one public washroom would have been great over there, but they didn't want it. So certainly looking at the road structure over there really needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
Well, I have been into most of the businesses over there, door knocking, talking to them. I am aware of the sidewalks, the infrastructure issues. We have been sort of working on it in council. What council has done for West Sidney residents is they took over half of Kenora Road from North Saanich in order to deal with some of the drainage and flooding issues. So we are working on improvements. They are coming along. It's just a question of getting it into the cycle and seeing what money we have.
Bob Jones.
Thank you. In speaking to this, I live in West Sydney. I guess I live in what you'll call Southwest Sydney, so I'm on the other side of the highway. And I think, again, hearkening back to my comments about the OCP, we need to go to the area plans for that area and decide what the people want us to do. One thing that I don't like, on a personal level, is the sign identifying it as an industrial park. That must be terribly disturbing for you if you feel you're living in an identified industrial park. But anyways, maybe identify it as Southwest or Northwest Sydney or something of that nature. But we need to go to the people, see what they want, and see whether or not it's realistic for us to provide it.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. When I was doing my door knocking, people did mention they wanted more sidewalks. Sidewalks, it's an expensive, and I support it, but we do have a 20-year infrastructure program with priorities. And I think the next council perhaps needs to look at those priorities. But to put in sidewalks, it's a step-by-step. You've got to put in your new storm drains, you put in curbs, then you put in the sidewalks. When we did something on Amelia for the residents, they wanted some safety so they could actually walk on their unsidewalked street. We put in a white line on both sides, and believe it or not, that cost us money because we still had to prepare the site for that. So I agree with you, but please don't tell us not to raise any taxes, because this is exactly, we will do what you wish us to do. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
Yeah, as well, door knocking in that area. A lot of the people find that they are divided by the highway. So, you know, the main issues I saw were sidewalks and traffic. Again, the homeowners over there are sort of fighting the traffic of the businesses. So I think that that area needs to be looked at, and it's well overdue. Thanks.
Peter Wainwright.
Like Bob, I also live on the west side of Sydney, and I'm quite familiar with the area. The industrial area is pretty busy. It is overdue for some improvements.
Don Amos.
Well, we do need curbs, sidewalks, and amenities in the business park area over there. We have to make it a priority. There's even one place on Henry Avenue which has open ditch, so that's not good. It's a growing area, and don't forget, we have done something. We had the McDonald Park Road bypass, which took the traffic off Gallaran and put the bypass in several years ago. We did that at a cost share with the Airport Authority. Unfortunately, North Saanich didn't contribute.
Steve Duck.
So it's not only West Sydney, but also Green Glade, Sydney North, that are all looking for services. And they look downtown and see what's happened, and there's this beautification going downtown, but they look at their neighborhood and not only don't see sidewalks, but also see other things that aren't taken care of. Part of our fiscal responsibility as public servants is making sure that we give a return to all residents in Sydney. Our neighbors across the way in West Sydney, the industrial group there, pays $600,000 in taxes. Yet when I recently spoke with one of the building companies over there, he just had to put in his own sidewalk in order to grow his business. That was part of the development request in growing his business. That doesn't seem very fair to me. We need to make sure we're giving services to all taxpayers, commercial and residential. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
When we reviewed the official community plan for Sydney in 2007, a local area plan was put in place for downtown Sydney, very important in terms of the future for Sydney. The west side has grown substantially, particularly the commercial and industrial group, and I think we need a revision of the OCP, and we need to come up with a local area plan for West Sydney, for both the residential area and the growing commercial area. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Yeah, what we need to do is we need to have a local area plan for that northwest region. I've already been in discussions with the West Sydney Industrial Group. And but we need to engage all of the stakeholders. So it would be all the residences, the Victoria Airport Authority, all the businesses. And then from that, we need to budget for what the area needs. So at the start of the process is to approach the people, have public open houses, do the local area plan, and then it comes back to council. We put it in the budget process, and then council votes on what we do. It would be staged, but it also would be nice to have the Victoria Airport Authority come to the table as well, because a lot of the surrounding lands there are adjacent to that area, and quite a bit of it is their responsibility. So that could be started as early as January. I've already mentioned that to the West Sydney Industrial Group, that it's time that we look at that area and we close those open ditches and we put sidewalks in. But there's a bit of a process that goes with it, so thank you.
Mike Barwick.
I personally, starting with the airport trail, you can see how that whole area is prime for some upgrades, some sidewalks. And I'm not sure if Steve here was looking at my notes, because he's just about said exactly what I was going to say. When we have to engage the residents, there has to be a plan, and we have to look at the monies and whether it makes sense for you, all of us, as taxpayers, to make that investment. Certainly, we can start small.
Rosemary Bongers.
I've spoken with a number of people from North, South, West Sydney. They do feel neglected, and that's just wrong. We all pay taxes. They complain about the sidewalks. A few residents have lost their children in those ditches that Don Amos just mentioned. They need to be fixed. I've also heard that the airplanes buzzing around every 5 minutes making loops from private business is a complication there as well. I think we definitely need to spend some more time thinking about that before we even consider perhaps purchasing land for a new fire hall or building a new fire hall. Thank you.
The next question is for mayoral candidates. So we are going to start with Steve Duck. This is an amalgamation question. The person writing this question says, I am voting no, but it's unclear how a no vote is interpreted. Could you tell the audience what a no vote means?
Good question. Amalgamation is a complicated issue, and I think we need to look at both sides of that question. No means that we would continue as we are. Yes means that we would be combining with some other municipalities, whether that's all the CRD or just our neighbors to the north and south, Central Saanich and North Saanich. No does not mean we lose anything, but do we have all the information about what yes is and what no is? We are doing a tremendous job right now as 3 municipalities sharing services. This is almost a form of amalgamation. Can we continue this? Why not? Can we expand this beyond just police and recreation and sewage to maybe some other areas that we can provide shared services and thereby help lessen the burden of the taxpaying residents? Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Thank you. The question on the election ballot is whether we want to explore, we want a provincially funded study to explore the pros and cons of amalgamation. It is not to vote for yes or no for amalgamation. I encourage everyone to vote yes to the request for the provincial government to explore the pros and cons. That doesn't mean we'll amalgamate. It means we'll learn the pros and cons on the various options. One perspective is that the municipality of Saanich has a population of 120,000 residents. Over 50% of its land is rural. It's managed for several decades. We have less than 50,000 residents in the 3 municipalities on the peninsula. Yet we have a Peninsula Hospital, a Peninsula School Board, Peninsula Recreation Center, Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, Peninsula Hockey, Baseball, Gardening Club. You get the idea. I support Mayor and Council looking at increased shared services with our Peninsula neighbors and learning the pros and cons on amalgamation options.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Well, as you know, this council has put a question on the ballot for the 15th. So you get to decide on the 15th whether you want to pursue this study or not. And if it comes back as no, then that's a no. We're not going to pursue it. If it comes back as a yes, then what we'll do is we'll engage the province with a study, and then we come back to you again after you have all the facts, and then you can decide once again, whether the facts actually make it worth our while or maybe not. So in either case, all of the decisions are going to be made by our residents. Thank you.
Don Amos.
What a no vote doesn't say is we don't want integrated services. We have a sewage treatment plant, recreation facilities, mutual aid agreements, emergency measures, hospitals. We can do more with integrated services. We can share some municipal services if we really take a hard look at it. So a no vote doesn't mean we don't want to look at working together on the peninsula at least.
On to the next question. This is for all candidates, so we'll start with Tim. The Mayor's Downtown Revitalization Task Force recently provided Council with its final report and recommendations. Have you read the report, and will you implement its recommendations?
Yes and yes.
All right, Barbara Follett.
I sat through many of the meetings for the Mayor's Task Force, and there were some great ideas to come through on that, and I think that's the direction we can take in Sidney, so I support it.
Yes, I have.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have read it, and I knew a number of the people that were on that task force. It's an excellent report, and yes, I would support it.
Melissa Haley.
I have it right here on my iPad. I've read it. I love the big, hairy, audacious goals. The big issue is getting the businesses to buy into it. It's divided up into sections of responsibility. Some is council, some is the BIA, some is individual business owners, and there's other people involved. In order to make it work, we have to get everyone to read it, understand it, and buy into it. I definitely think it's a good idea. I just need other people to come on board.
Bob Jones.
Thank you. I'm aware of most of its contents, and yes, the recommendations seem to make sense.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Yeah, I've read the report, and I certainly support the findings of the report, but as Melissa Haley has mentioned, there's more than one player of the residents. It's also the business community and others. So hopefully we can all make it work together. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
I have also read the report and would strongly support it. So as the others have mentioned, if all parties are on board, I think it will work well.
Peter Wainwright.
You can find a copy of the report on the town's website. It's fairly lengthy. I have read it. I also went to the Committee of the Whole where the final report was being presented. And yes, I support the recommendations that are in it.
Don Amos.
Thank you. Well, I think that I support it, but we have to work with all parties, and the key is how do you do that? You have to work with our Community Development Committee, should be a partner working with the task force, and we can use that report as a catalyst, and I firmly believe we need a community forum. We've got to bring everyone to the table and use that report as a basis to get us started to move forward for the future.
Steve Duck.
So along with Barbara, we sat through a number of 6 months of meetings of the Task Force Revitalization. And it was very interesting and very engaging, and I want to thank all the volunteers from our community that gave their time to sit on that committee. But there's 108 items on that list of things to do. And when you look at those, some of those have been there a long time, and it was just a collection by the task force. Some of those are new. And I think the important thing is we have to be fiscally responsible in managing those as we go forward. That does require some partnerships. That does require some shared services. And lastly, we need to make sure that we're doing those in priority order. What is the best for our downtown to make it a vibrant, successful, and engaging place to come? Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Thank you. The Mayor's Task Force has done very important work. I have read the report. I made submissions to the task force while it was conducting its work. And it's important to engage all of the stakeholders throughout the community, and we need to move forward. It's imperative to sustain and enhance the vibrancy of our business and commercial areas throughout Sydney. Thank you.
Steve Price.
This council just recently endorsed the Mayor's Task Force report, and what it is an excellent roadmap for future councils to follow. So I will be supporting all of the recommendations, but it is a long-term plan. It will take years to implement everything, so it's all not going to happen overnight, but it's just an excellent blueprint for future councils to follow, so thank you.
As I understand it, there, of course, are going to be roadblocks with anything, but the question that was put to us was read and support. Simply yes and yes.
Rosemary Bongers.
Yes, it's an extensive report. It's a great start, but that's all it is right now. It will take a lot of effort to get everybody on board and work as a team to see it to fruition.
Yes, I was on the task force. I helped create that report. So yes, I would be in favor of initiating the items. Thank you.
Our next question will begin with Barbara. It's for all candidates. What is your opinion about building another new fire hall, also on its location?
What was the last part?
Also on its location. What are your opinions on its location?
The fire hall is a complex question, and I don't think we've got enough of that information. I did spend some time recently with the fire chief to ask him some of the reasons for moving the fire hall and building the new one. They're really good reasons, but they sort of come under a wish list. I'd like to know how much of that wish list can be amended and what our options are for upgrading the existing fire hall where it is.
Sheila Fay.
Thank you. My understanding is that Fire Hall is an extremely small center now for the town of Sidney, and it needs some extensive upgrading, but I'm really not totally aware of all the upgrading that they're asking for. As far as moving it, my question would be where? And what location would really work for Sidney? Like they have been talking about Sidney School, the elementary school, in one part of the property. Is that a good location, or would it be better to be over to the west side of Sidney? Is that a better location? Honestly, I don't think we have enough information at this time to make a concerted decision one way or the other. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
From what I understand, the fire hall is not seismically sound, so no one wants to be on the council that the earthquake happens and all our rescue gear is destroyed. That would just ruin it. What we are doing now is just looking at facts. We are looking at the possibility of the school site. It is not set in stone. We're going out, we're looking at other schools that have fire stations next door. McTavish, when it was used, had a fire station across the street. South Park Elementary in Beacon Hill Park down Victoria shares a wall with a fire hall. If you have a neighborhood that really wants a fire hall, let us know, please.
Bob Jones.
Thank you. That fire hall was seismically state-of-the-art less than 30 years ago. So that makes it not so bad compared to most of the fire halls in the CRD. It's the 5th newest in the CRD. I ran in 1987 and opposed its building. However, they built it anyways. I thought we should have a public safety building. It's going to cost us $4 to $5 million that we do not have. And if we put it on Sidney school grounds, it's going to take away from some green space in a town where we don't have much green space. So I think we need to look at it where it is. There's some options to expand where it is. There are ways to make it seismically updated and stable. And we can do that over a period of time in a capital plan. We don't have to do it all at once. We don't have to spend $4 to $5 million all at once. It's just simply not that old, and I don't see the value in replacing it. We have a composite fire department. That's in the end run going to cost us a lot of money too.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. I believe that the new fire hall is required for seismic requirements. It needs to be sited where reaction times are their best to protect Sidney residents and commerce. Now, we've had the opportunity to include ambulance services and emergency management services and fire training activities. Now, the opportunity's also arisen to take advantage of negotiations with the local school district. The proposal obviously is in early days. There will be lots of communications and discussed with all stakeholders. As far as financing is concerned, the present fire hall is probably worth $3 million, so that's not a bad start. It would be funded as we have funded our CMP building and our sewage treatment building in a long-term debt. I do believe that there is a requirement here for the safety of our residents and our businesses. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
From what I'm told, we do need to look at possible replacement of the fire hall. And if that is the case, then we need to look into those things. But as it stands right now, I personally don't have enough information on it to make a decision. Thanks.
Peter Wainwright.
Like most Sidney residents, I don't have enough information to make an informed decision. I understand that the seismic standards have changed, and if we have a big enough quake, this is not expected to survive. But I don't know how much it's going to cost to renovate it, to fix it, whether that is an option. I don't know what sites are available that we could consider other than the Sidney Elementary School. I don't know what it would cost to construct it there or a different site, maybe even on the gateway lands, who knows. I don't know the urgency for doing this, and particularly when we look at some of the other things we need to do, I don't know where the money's going to come from. We're just, like the rest of you, I am not in a position to be able to make an informed decision. So that is job number one, is getting that information and getting it out to the community.
Don Amos.
Yeah, I agree with Peter. We require an in-depth needs assessment. We need that to look at options for upgrading the existing, including the cost. We look at all options for the location because the cost of land is expensive. We might be able to work in partnership with some other public land we have. And remember one thing, when you talk about long-term debt, it's easy to spend other people's money, the taxpayers' money. That's long-term debt, and our future citizens are going to be saddled with that debt.
Steve Duck.
So there are two parts to this question. First, what's our fiscal responsibility in making sure that it is affordable for us to put this new construction in place? Secondly, we need to make sure that we ensure emergency service and safety for our residents. So it's not an easy question. I was president and council when the proposal was put forward, and it is an attractive location on Sidney Elementary. But we have to work together with the children that go there to school and the residents that are going to be right next to a fire hall. It's important that we engage the community to see what is best for our community. Possibly a retrofit is a short-term solution and a cost-effective solution. The location is a challenge. We don't have available land. We can't put it at the end of the runway because that is not a legal place to put an emergency services. So we have to look at those options and engage the community to see what the best responses are for fiscal responsibility and emergency services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Thank you. While serving on council 209 to 211, I sat on, represented council on the local emergency preparedness committee. And prudent emergency preparedness means the current fire hall needs to meet today's seismic standards. Mayor and council appear to be looking at the Sidney Elementary School site for a new fire hall and ambulance center. While I and many of you have concerns about emergency vehicles operating in close proximity to elementary school children, I believe and support community information and ideas forum before proceeding any further on the school location.
Steve Price.
Thank you. Currently, the new fire hall is the preliminary designs almost ready, and in January we're going to be coming to the public for your input on the fire hall itself, the site location, what you think. So that's the first step in the puzzle, but it's a complex question. And the current site is going to take $3 to $4 million to bring it up to seismic standards. So, and it's also too small, even at present. So what are we looking at in the future? So your council in the new year will have to decide, do we spend $3 or $4 million on a site that's too small and make it seismically sound, or do we look at a different location? It may be the Sidney School site, or it may be another site, but that goes back to the public open houses and the public engagement that we're going to have first thing in January on this. So it'll be ready for you to look at then. And with your feedback, that comes back to council, then we can use that to decide what you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Barwick.
In the end, first responders are exactly that. They are the first responders. They are there to protect us. So what do we do to help them? First, we gather the facts. We make informed decisions. And when it comes to location, we need to be prudent. We need to look at our options. I mean, Sidney School, I can just imagine the sirens going off and seeing a whole bunch of 3rd and 4th graders with their faces slapped against the windows. Cool, fire trucks. So I'm not exactly sure that that's the best location. That might not be a bad location for some residential housing, and maybe we look somewhere else for fire hall land. Thank you.
Rosemary Bongers.
We have 4 fire halls within a 10K radius. West Sidney is better served with the Deep Cove Fire Hall. They would get there faster. We have 11,000 people in this town. I don't believe that the cost of building a fire hall and purchasing the land that it would sit on is feasible for us, the taxpayers. I believe that we should encourage the current fire hall to be seismically upgraded.
Aaron Bremner.
I don't have a lot of new information to add. I agree with Peter Wainwright that gathering the information should be our top priority. But if we have identified that our fire hall is not seismically safe today, and an earthquake happens tomorrow, shouldn't we be parking our trucks outside now?
Tim Chad.
Just so as you know, I'm an ex-volunteer firefighter for the town of Sidney, so you may judge me as being slanted towards the new fire hall and the property at the bottom of elementary school. To bring the fire hall up to code, first thing that has to be done is the ceiling has to be sheeted with 3/4 inch plywood. That's the ceiling of the first floor. In conjunction with that, the rafters have to be connected properly that weren't done at the beginning, and I don't know why. Probably a change in the code. Then they have to go to the roof and feed rebar down through all the cavities in the walls and then fill it up with concrete. There's my report.
On to the next question. This is for all candidates, so we're going to start with Sheila Fay. Do you have any suggestions for recruiting family doctors to Sidney?
One of the suggestions that has been circulating around Sydney for a couple of years is to possibly have a clinic that encompasses all of the doctors, or at least a vast majority of them. Doctors having their own offices now on an individual basis has become cost prohibitive. Another thing that we have to do for the doctors or any professional medical people that we want to bring here is to make sure that we have some housing for them. Again, when they come out of medical school, they're in debt up to their ears, and to try to go out and buy a house and start a practice, it really becomes cost prohibitive. So between 2 or 3 different avenues that we can explore, I think we could bring in some new doctors into the district, and we certainly need them. Thank you.
Melissa Haley.
The main issue is there's not enough people going through medical school to become doctors. Secondary, most people want a life-work balance. Being a doctor has usually meant working most your life in the office, spending very little time with your family. The new generation of doctors need the work-life balance. And in order to achieve that, they like to work in clinics where they can work collectively with other specialists. And this also allows them to have time with their families and have the x-rays and the ultrasound there for their patients to get the diagnosis done right on site.
Bob Jones.
I frankly don't have an easy answer here, and I don't think there is one. You look at the demographic, we're boomers and whatnot, there's a lot of us, and those professionals coming up aren't quite as plentiful. They may or may not want to come here, given the demographic. There's certainly no shortage of anything to do. If we could find some way of enhancing medical services through a centralized clinic, so be it. That would be a good thing. But to be real honest, I don't know how we'd go about doing that. We should examine it.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you. Well, I certainly support the one-stop medical shop, which has the doctors, the x-rays, the blood work, all under one. It's happening in Victoria, for example. Where we can do it as a community, when developers are developing in the center core and they wish to put something in there, there's probably some tax advantage given to them if they put in a one-stop medical shop. Now, how do we get the doctors to come? Treat them well. I always say, I've met some doctors recently, and they've come from Calgary. They were educated in Calgary, and I said, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cam McLennan.
I again have to agree with some of the other councillors that I'm not sure what the best way is. I know that the housing thing is a big issue, and this one-stop shop situation sounds appealing, but I really don't know what the answer is for that. So I think we would have to work on that. Thanks.
Peter Wainwright.
I recognize that there's a problem, but I don't see a magic solution either. I've heard a couple of ideas. They don't sound unreasonable. The one thing I'd be leery about is stepping into something that the province is supposed to fund and basically encouraging them to download that responsibility onto our municipal taxpayers. So if there's a reasonable solution, I'd support it, but I think we have to be cautious.
Don Amos.
Yes, the trend today for doctors graduating is that they want to be specialists. They don't want to be family doctors because of the time issue and the weekend work, etc. So what is happening in many provinces across Canada is the nurse practitioner model, where nurses at university are receiving additional training, and you will go to a nurse practitioner who will refer you to a specialist for your ailment. Also, they will have with them a nutritionist, social workers, and care relief people. So it's one-stop shopping to help you out with your various medical problems. They have a pilot project in James Bay at the present time.
Steve Duck.
So a community clinic in Sydney is not within our municipal mandate. However, we should be looking at what we can do to enhance those services. We have private clinics here that can offer those services and are looking to expand. We can share with our neighbors in North Saanich and Central Saanich to look at a shared clinic that is adjacent to the Saanich Peninsula Hospital. In my conversations with representatives from the foundation and the hospital there, this is the best way to proceed because it will give us doctors on site. They're going to have potentially residences there for those doctors as they move to this area, but it will ensure that we have doctors with hospital privileges. It will ensure that we keep the Saanich Peninsula Hospital open and available to all community residents. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
Thank you. We've certainly heard how the model is changing for the provision of services and the change in clinics. And I think having a Peninsula Hospital and the 3 municipalities need to work together. And certainly we need to consider if certain zoning is required or incentives are required to help see these clinics be built, whether they're in our municipality or whether they're closer to the hospital. We need to work together on this. Thank you.
Steve Price.
Thank you. I've been on the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee for the last year, and we've been meeting with the South Island Division of Family Physicians. We've had design charettes here just to try to come up with solutions. But the bottom line is, most of the doctors in this area are about to retire within the next 5 to 10 years, and there's nobody coming to replace them. So whether it's a provincial responsibility or not, if they don't step up to the plate, we as a town have to decide, do we want to have family doctors? Do we want to keep our hospital open? Or do we all want to go to Victoria? So that's probably the choices we're going to be facing. So we will have some options as we redevelop certain parts of the town, because the town does own land. And we can build a clinic, and it could be incorporated into a new project at little or no cost to us as a bonus amenity for like a new project of some sort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Barwick.
Philosophically, it makes sense. It's a great model. Love to see it. Do we have the doctors? That's the question. They're all retiring. My family doctor's retiring. I'm having a hard time finding another one. So build it and they will come. Sydney also, we have to also have the amenities. We have to have the affordable housing, like it was mentioned down the end of the table. Doctors coming out are not rich, and Sydney is not the cheapest place in the world to live. We all know that, or anywhere on Vancouver Island. So philosophically, I like the idea. Can we do it? We'll have to see.
Rosemary Bongers.
I think a big deterrent for doctors not coming here, it is the hospital privileges. I myself, I just had a test done, and to get that checked, I was told I could come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, anytime. My doctor seems to want to have patients. So perhaps we could put on the Sydney website which doctors there are that would allow for new patients. It's the only thing I can think of at this time. I know there is a problem. I think it's just connecting the dots for people, especially newcomers.
Aaron Bremner.
So the question is about recruiting family doctors. It's a pretty loaded question to answer in just a minute. I know it's an issue with the residents because I've heard it. What I do know is that doctors go to school to be doctors, so I'm in favor of finding a model out there. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure there's something that we can learn from out there and implement in our community. I think that would be a creative and achievable plan. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
I don't think we've heard a solution. I don't think anybody here in this building has a solution. A lot of people are working very hard to develop that solution. The BCMA reports that less than a third of the doctors that graduate every year stay in the province. That's really scary. So if the BCMA can't convince doctors to stay in the province, I don't know what we're going to do. I would sure support some solution that comes up. I don't have it.
Barbara Follett.
I agree this is a loaded question, and it's also one that goes beyond the mandate of the municipalities. It really needs to go into senior government. Our provincial and federal government needs to work together. I think the idea of expanding a clinic at the Saanich Peninsula in conjunction with that, so that doctors don't have the overhead of a private clinic. They're looking for a lifestyle just like the rest of us. They're not willing to do the 18-hour days anymore. There are changes, and I think we can work with it, but it is going to be a difficult one. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the final question of the evening. So now we're going to move on to closing statements and closing remarks. We're going to start with the council candidates, and then we'll do the mayoral candidates last. So, Mike, we will start with you. And a reminder again, you have 1 minute for your closing statement, and mayoral candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Well, I thank you all for coming out and mainly for staying, and the questions thought-provoking and well thought out. I'm just going to keep pushing forward in this election. I've got over 30 years in coaching and being a mentor for kids, as well as executive positions. And I've also spent over 20 years in municipal services. I've worked for Mel Cuvalier, I've worked for Frank Leonard, I've worked for Murray Cole, and numerous councils. I know how municipalities work from the very bottom of the ditch right to the table. Thank you.
Rosemary Bongers.
It's about choices. There is only so much money. This election is not about me, it's about us. It's our money, it's our town. I promise to fight to ensure that every voice is represented. A vote for me is a vote for you.
Erin Bremner.
Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and for the Mary Winsbeer Centre for hosting us tonight. My name is Erin Bremner. I'm energetic, I'm committed, and I'm action-oriented. I love our Sidney, and I would love the opportunity to serve as your town councillor. Thank you.
Tim Chad.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer has recently reported that municipalities have too much debt. I will be working with our council to review the town of Sidney's debt with the aim to control spending and work towards zero increases in taxes to residents and business. I intend to also work for a change in the governance of the Peninsula Recreation. The contract with the CRD needs to be cancelled, and the 3 municipalities must assume full control. I support securing attainable housing for Sidney families, ensuring a safe and secure community, maintaining Sidney as the commercial centre for the Peninsula, and inclusive local government. Please take a copy of my brochure home with you. My contact methods are included. Thank you, and please get out and vote.
Barbara Follett.
Municipal elections are the level of politics that most, if not in fact all of us, should involve ourselves. The decisions made at this level impact us in very real and practical ways. It is about our roads, sewers, garbage and water, our houses, emergency services, about policies that impact our daily lives. In any election, it is our youth that has the most to gain and lose, as they will live the longest with the decisions that we make today. Voting is also our greatest equalizer. No matter our education, social or economic position, each vote carries the same weight. Let us respect the sacrifices made by our fighters for democracy and vote. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you to the Peninsula News Review and the Chamber for hosting this event. My name is Barbara Follett, and on November 15, vote Follett on the ballot.
Sheila Fay.
Thank you, and thank everybody for coming this evening. I hope I can enjoy your support on November the 15th. Your support will give me another voice to make sure our community continues to enjoy good government, improve support for our local businesses, take action to keep taxes at zero where possible, encourage housing for all citizens, and protect our arts and culture. I know that I have been working in this community for a long time, and I will continue to do so. Thank you again for coming.
Melissa Haley.
I'm Melissa Haley. I've enjoyed the last 3 years on council. Sidney Council is wonderful in that we're very issue-oriented. We don't do a lot of the politics. And in fact, when you compare us to a lot of other municipalities, we're doing really well. The issues in Sidney are fairly small in comparison to a lot of other issues, but they're big here in Sidney. I also really want to enforce communication. As a councillor, we all take the input on what you have to say and weigh it as part of our decision making. Things like sydneysays.ca also help contribute to that. And also, if you want a preview on Amalgamation report, I've one from 1999 if you want to see that. So please vote Melissa Haley.
Bob Jones.
Anyways, I'd like to thank you for coming, and I'd like to wish everybody well. It takes a lot of jam to run for these positions, a lot of time and a lot of work. So good luck to you all. I hope you will all vote. If you're here, you're likely going to vote. Don't have to say that too much. And if you feel like it, I'd like you to vote for me. I want you to take away one thing. And I am an advocate, and always have been, and have a record of being an advocate for the residential taxpayer. That won't change. So drive carefully and have a good evening.
Mervyn Lougher-Goodey.
Thank you, Louise. My name is Mervyn Lougher-Goodey, a resident of Sidney, and I ask for your support for my re-election to the next council. I believe my broad background assists me in the decision-making process around the council table. I'm a team player and have enjoyed the collegial atmosphere of the past council and would hope to be given the opportunity to serve you as a member of the next council. During debate at council, I would continue to support those initiatives that are good for Sidney and its citizens with reasonable municipal rates. I have a simple system that I adhere to. During the discussion, I make the process which I ask myself, is the proposal a must-do, should-do, or could-do? The must-dos, which include public safety, fire and police, underground utilities, and general road safety, must be funded. Thank you all for coming. I wish you good night and a safe journey home. And please vote Mervyn Lougher-Goodey on November the 15th. Thank you.
Cam McLennan.
Over the last 3 weeks, I've been knocking on over 400 doors in Sidney, and I've talked to lots of you. Most and a lot of you are probably in this room. Everyone has great ideas and real big issues, and I think that, I would like to bring those issues and ideas to the table and work with you to make a better Sidney. I think that my years of volunteerism have proven that I want to work with this town and help move us forward. Get some affordable housing. Keep some of us youth in here. So on November 15th, please vote Cam McLennan for council. Thanks.
Peter Wainwright.
I see a fair number of people have already left. Thank you all for staying to the end of this. This election is going to be pretty important. It's a 4-year term, so keep in mind that you're going to have to live with the people you elect for a full 4 years, not 3. Sidney's got some challenges facing it, and I think you heard that from the questions tonight, but financial pressure is definitely there. Our downtown is facing some challenges with regional competition, and our population dropped, and our youth declined, and now about 37% of our residents are 65 years and over. Like, the demographic is switching the wrong way. So we need to do something to reverse that trend, and we've got these other challenges too. You need to elect a team that has a diversity of backgrounds. It would be good to have some experienced people on council.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing remarks from our mayoral candidates, and they will once again have 1 minute and 30 seconds each, starting with Don Amos.
I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening, and thank you to the sponsors for organizing the event. That takes a lot of work too, and it's really appreciated by all the candidates. Sidney is going to have a mainly new, inexperienced council this term. Knowledge and an understanding of the job will help to get them up to speed quickly. It will take the knowledge and experience of that job to deal with the issues you have raised this evening, to do them in a timely manner. I have a proven track record. I have the knowledge, I have the experience, and the leadership skills to be your mayor. I thank you for your support.
Steve Duck.
Thank you for coming this evening, and certainly for your patience in listening to us share our answers to the many questions. Those questions give you an idea of the issues that are available in our community. Those questions tell us that the status quo is not an option. We need new leadership in Town Hall. I am that leader. I am passionate about Sidney and its future opportunities. As your mayor, I am committed to working hard to 1, bringing spending under control, 2, encouraging building partnerships which benefit our community, 3, leading an open and transparent local government, and 4, engaging and listening to you, our citizens, as to how we move forward. Together, we build on what we have and what we can be, our vision and our future. Next Tuesday, November 11th, we honor those that sacrifice much for our democracy. On November 15th, please vote to respect that sacrifice by those people. On November 15th, please vote Duck for mayor. Thank you.
Cliff McNeil-Smith.
I want to thank the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, the Peninsula News Review, and Mary Winspear Center for organizing and hosting this event tonight. 2 things I'd like to clarify. On Sunday in the Times Colonist, with all the candidates' review, my age was reported as 65. I'm 56. It was their error that's since been corrected. And secondly, in 2009, I was elected without using lawn and roadway signs, and I've again chosen to do that during this election to have a softer footprint in the environment. If the next council is to be effective, it needs to have a strong new leader. It needs to have a vision and a business plan. Mayor and council need to engage residents, businesses, and community organizations and value your input. Council needs to reach consensus on what is best for the community at large and then be accountable back to you, the taxpayers. My broad experience in business, community organizations, and on council has demonstrated again and again that Sidney does best and our future is brightest when we work together. I'll bring strong, fresh, new leadership to the next council and for our community. Let's work together to ensure Sidney remains a wonderful place to live, work, retire, and enjoy. I ask for your vote to become Mayor of Sidney. Thank you for coming this evening.
Steve Price.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming as well tonight. It's been wonderful to see everybody. If elected, my pledge to you is to continue to be open and honest as I've been for the last 2 terms, to maintain an open door policy to all our residents, and to listen to, and more importantly, act on solving your concerns and issues, both large and small. We will continue to keep taxes low while we maintain the high level of service and amenities you've come to expect. We will have public forums on all major issues to hear from you, the residents, the owners of the town. We will continue to recognize the essential role our many nonprofit groups and volunteers play in the community, and council's support of your efforts will always be there. This town shines as much as it does in large part because of the commitment and dedication of our volunteers. And we will continue to focus on the everyday things that make our lives better, such as keeping our downtown an attractive and safe place to be. And under my leadership, we will maintain the one-way section of Beacon Avenue. Our parks and walkways will continue to be well maintained. We will address the parking concerns by improving and also adding to the supply of parking spaces. And so tonight, I ask for your support to help me move this town forward towards a bright future. So together, we can make Sidney even better by working together. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And a big round of applause for the candidates. It's not easy to sit up here and speak to a big audience like this, so well done, everyone. And of course, whoa, that was loud. And a big round of applause to you. It's so wonderful to see so many people engaged. And of course, the most important thing is get out November 15th and vote.